Over 2/3 of our young people, ages 18 to about 22, leave the church for good. And this is a stat that greatly burdens me and other pastors and church leaders, and it should. We spend a lot of time talking about it and strategizing, trying to figure out what we as a church can do to change this. Well, the answer might be right in front of us, but it's probably not what you think. Hey everybody, thanks so much for hitting play and welcome to what I like to call PJ Shorts, where in 5 minutes or less I share with you something the Lord taught me through my sermon preparation. Because we all know that as a pastor, there is nothing I can say in 1 minute or less. So let's get right into it. This week I am in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 14 and 15, and I am really actually preparing for a Mother's Day sermon, but there's something that really struck me as I was studying this. In 2 Timothy chapter 3, Paul is talking to young Timothy, who by this time is a pastor, and he says to young Timothy, he says, "Continue in the things that you firmly believe." Continuing means not quitting. Continuing means not dropping out of church. Paul is telling this young man, continue in the things. Be faithful to God. Be faithful to the things that you have been taught. And then he says, remember where you learned them. Remember where you were taught them. And here's where the key lies. Timothy was not taught all of these things in church. As a child, his mother and grandmother taught him the word. We read that in other places in Scripture. They instilled in him a passion and a love for Scripture. They lived out for him what it meant to be a Christian. He saw this example. As I was studying this, it really hit me. Maybe as church leaders, we're looking in the wrong places for strategy to keep our kids in church. We see here a clear example that if we want to keep our kids in church, it starts with the family. The family is the key to keeping our kids in church. Now, as a dad, this really burdens me. As a pastor, it encourages me. It takes a little of the burden off of me. But as a father, man, this puts a lot of burden on me. For too long, at least in my experience, it seems like families have let the church be the ones to try to instill these beliefs in their kids. They call themselves Christian families, but they don't really live that way. They don't dig into the Word. They don't talk to their kids about deep spiritual things. They don't model for them what it looks like to be a Christian. In fact, they have allowed the world to creep into their lives, and they're taking their kids off to sports or to do other things that they want their kids to experience. And what they fail to realize is we're teaching our kids that church isn't important. And then we wonder why at 18, 19, 22, they just leave the church. And we sit around and we scratch our heads and we try to come up with strategies when really the biggest problem starts in the home. Because as parents, we have not made church priority. We have not made church important for our young people. It starts with, first of all, cultivating a culture in which the Scriptures are loved and cherished, where we hold up the Scripture as our way of living. And then, parents, we need to cultivate a culture of faithfulness to church. It's so easy for us to just not show up to church on a Sunday or whatever it is that's keeping us out of church. We need to be in church faithfully, not just in church, but serving in church. Timothy had a mother and a grandmother that served faithfully, that were a part of the church and what was going on, and served as an example for him. But it wasn't the church. I recognize, yes, as a church, as a pastor, there are some responsibilities that lie on us. I have a great responsibility. If I'm going to put the responsibility on you, the parent, then I have a great responsibility to equip you. So yes, there is some responsibility that lies on the church. We need to include our kids. We need to keep them involved and give them opportunities to serve. But I believe, just as we see here, keeping our kids in church for a lifetime starts at home. If this challenged you, maybe it encouraged you in some way, make sure you hit the like button. Also, I'd love it if you'd share it. We'll see you next time.